On August 8th of 1992, Metallica was on tour with Guns N' Roses, and James Hetfield was standing close to the pyrotechnics effects, and then unfortunately one of those effects exploded onto him and suffered second and third degree burns on his left side. However, this would have been worse if it wasn't for his guitar protecting him from some of the blast. It took 2.5 weeks for him to recover, and then he was back on stage after that. In 1993, they had another tour called the Nowhere Else to Roam Tour, which was considered a sequel to their Black Album tour. They released a compilation live album called Live Shit, Binge, and Purge, released on November 23rd, 1993. They took a long break before playing a few shows in 1995 and returned to the studio for their 6th album, decided to change their sound to a more hard rock sound, and they decided to change their image even more by cutting their hair. They recorded a lot of songs that they decided to split the album into 2 parts. Their 6th album was called Load, released on June 4th, 1996. It was Metallica's longest album to date. Even though it was well received by critics, it did not have the critical acclaim that the previous 5 albums did. In the US, it sold over 5 million copies, peaking at number 1 in the Billboard charts. Great songs like Ain't My Bitch, Bleeding Me, King Nothing, and Until It Sleeps. Their tour was called Poor Touring Me, lasted from June 4th, 1996 to May 28th of 1997. Following the tour, they began to work on their follow-up album, which was originally supposed to be a double album released on the same date as Load, but troubles with recording and with so many songs, they decided just to split it into 2 albums. Their follow-up and 7th album was basically called Reload, released on November 18th, 1997. It sold less than what Load did, selling 3 million copies in the US, but it still peaked at number 1 in the US Billboard. It had more mixed reviews, with one critic saying Reload continues Metallica's journey into stripped down maturity while toying with fresh melodic textures, and also forsakes some of the punchy hooks and gut-clenching heft that elevated recent Metallica CDs. But it did have great songs like Fuel, The Memory Remains, Fixer, and The Unforgiven 2. The tour lasted from August 22nd, 1997 to April 22nd of 1999. On November 24th, 1998, they released a cover album of other people's songs called Garage Inc., which was more positive reviews and sold better than what Reload did. It sold 5 million copies in the US and peaking at number 2 in the US Billboard. As they entered a new millennium, they had a major problem. A music streaming service that's called Napster discovered their song I Disappear, which was an unfinished version, and they put it on their website. Metallica reacted with a lawsuit, accusing them of copyright infringements and demanding that that song and their other songs were banned from the site. Their request was granted, and the website would later shut down. On January 17, 2001, bassist James Newsted left the band for personal and private reasons, but they still remained close friends. Bob Rock became the temporary bassist in 2001 and 2002 while they were working on their next album. Finally, in February 2003, they hired their permanent bassist and cool dude, Robert Trujillo. In their next album, they decided to change their sound again to alternative metal, and also being raw and simplistic with no guitar solos. Their 8th album was called St.Anger, released on June 5th, 2003. Originally, it was supposed to be released on June 10th, but fears of networks copyrighting their songs made them release it on June 5th. The album was the weakest out of all their albums, having mixed reviews and only selling 2 million copies in the US, but it still peaked at number 1 in the Billboard. The Madly and Anger tour lasted from November 6, 2003 to November 28th of 2004. Following the tour, they took a break in 2005 to spend time with friends and family. In early 2006, they had a small tour called Escape from the Studio 06 that lasted from March 13th to August 15th of 2006. Then on December 4th of 2006, they released a video album called The Video from 1989 to 2004, which had live performances and music videos. Then another short tour in 2007 called Sick of the Studios, which lasted from June 28th of 2007 to October 28th of 2007. By this time, they were working on their next album. They announced that they were going to go back to their thrash metal style from their 80s albums. Their ninth album they called Death Magnetic, released on September 12, 2008. The album received positive reviews after a bad St.Anger. It sold 2 million copies in the US and peaked at number 1 in the US Billboard. Despite this, it was criticized for having comprised sound quality to the excessive compressed dynamic range, leading to an audible distortion. But the tour lasted from October 17, 2008 to November 21st of 2010, having a good amount of sellout concerts though. In 2011, they worked on their collaboration album with Lou Reed, which they call Lulu, released on October 31st, 2011. However, it had negative reviews and only peaked at number 36 in the US Billboard. But then in December 13th of 2011, they released Beyond Magnetic, which was the band's 30th anniversary when they started releasing their 4 new songs. From 2012 to 2014, they performed at festivals rather than touring most of the time. They usually played their classic songs. Then in 2015, they started working on their next album, said it's going to have the same style as Death Magnetic did, as well as a tour they called Lords of the Summer Tour, which lasted from May 9th to September 19th of 2015. Following that tour, they began to concentrate on their new album in 2016. Their 10th album was called Hardwired to Self-Destruct, released on November 18, 2016. The album had positive reviews, but some people said it did not have the good sound as their 80s albums did. It sold 1 million copies in the US and peaked at number 1 in the US Billboard. The tour is still going on today. It started on February 6, 2016 and will end on November 2, 2019. In March 2019, they announced after the tour they were going to work on their next album that's still in development. And guys, that's Metallica. Throughout their time, they had been nominated for 121 awards, and they have won 78 of them. If you're a fan of fast songs or thrash metal, I highly recommend Metallica. They are creative, they're cool, they're fun to listen to, and personally, I really love the band. I'm a big fan of their songs, and I'm a big fan of their style. So as a result, I'm giving Metallica an A. That's all I have for you guys today. Please hit that subscribe button if you want to look for more bands. Anyways, guys, I'm Start McCleary Music. Thanks for watching. Peace.